On August 28, 2002, a 5-year-old boy named Julian Hernandez left his mother's house in Alabama for preschool and never arrived. For 13 years, his mother waited by the phone for 13 years, living with the particular torture of not knowing if her son was alive or not. What happened next would expose the truth that has been hidden for the past 10 years. August 28, 2002, 8:30 in the morning. Julian's mother stands in the doorway of their Vestavia Hills home, watching Bobby Hernandez buckle their 5-year-old son into the back seat. Preschool drop-off, the routine Tuesday morning handoff that defines their co-parenting arrangement. Bobby has Julian's backpack slung over his shoulder, the Spider-Man lunchbox she packed that morning, everything the boy needs for his day. "I'll have him back by 3, Bobby says, and she nods, waves to Julian through the car window. The boy grins, waves back with the unself-conscious enthusiasm of 5-year-olds who haven't yet learned that some goodbyes are permanent. 3 o'clock comes and goes. No Bobby, no Julian. The phone rings unanswered when she calls Bobby's cell, straight to voicemail on the 3rd ring like he's deliberately sending it there. She calls the preschool. "Julian Hernandez?" The director's voice carries confusion. "He never arrived this morning. We assumed he was sick. But to understand how a 5-year-old could vanish into thin air, you need to know who Julian was that August morning, and who Bobby Hernandez pretended to be. Julian is 5 years old, which means he's at the age where the world is still fundamentally trustworthy, where adults, especially parents, represent absolute authority and safety. He lives with his mother in Vestavia Hills, a quiet suburb stretching south of Birmingham, Alabama. The neighborhood is the kind where kids ride bikes in cul-de-sacs and parents know each other's names. His mother has primary custody following the end of her relationship with Bobby, an arrangement formalized through family court, but maintained through the fragile cooperation that unmarried parents construct when they're trying to do right by their child. Julian loves both his parents, with the uncomplicated devotion of children who haven't yet learned that love can be weaponized. When he's with his mother, he talks about the things Dad showed him, how to throw a baseball, how to identify different types of cars. When he's with Bobby during visitation weekends, he talks about Mom's cooking, about the way she reads bedtime stories with different voices for different characters. He exists in that space between two homes that millions of children of separated parents occupy, not broken by the arrangement but shaped by it, learning early that family can have multiple configurations and still feel whole. Bobby Hernandez appears, to anyone watching, to be managing the situation responsibly. He shows up on time for pickups, returns Julian as scheduled, pays his portion of expenses without the drama that characterizes many custody arrangements. The mother trusts him with their son because he's given her no reason not to, because he's Julian's father, because some baseline of faith is necessary to make co-parenting function. This morning's preschool drop-off is Bobby's responsibility because the mother has an early meeting at work. It's a normal division of labor, the kind negotiated in countless text messages and phone calls between separated parents trying to coordinate the logistics of raising a child across 2 households. What she doesn't see, can't see, is the architecture of resentment Bobby has been constructing in private. The custody arrangement feels to him like defeat, like the mother has won some contest he didn't know he was losing. He interprets every decision, where Julian goes to preschool, which doctor he sees, how holidays are divided, as evidence of the mother's control over his access to his own son. The anger grows in the space between what he believes he deserves and what the family court has granted him, fed by the particular bitterness of men who mistake partnership for ownership. For weeks, maybe months, Bobby has been preparing. The cash withdrawals from his bank account, small amounts that don't trigger attention, accumulate in an envelope hidden in his apartment. He's been packing Julian's belongings incrementally. Favorite toys, clothes in the next size up, the stuffed dog Julian can't sleep without, storing them in the trunk of his car. He's written the note, rewritten it, refined it until the words express exactly the message he wants to send. Vestavia Hills in 2002 is a place that still operates on assumptions that will soon feel quaint. This is pre-Amber Alert saturation, before every cell phone can receive emergency notifications, before parents routinely track their children's locations through apps. The September 11th attacks happened less than a year ago, and while security has tightened at airports and government buildings, The infrastructure of daily life, the ways people verify identity, track movement, confirm that someone is who they claim to be, remains surprisingly porous. Social security numbers are required for children enrolling in school, but the verification is often cursory, a number written on a form rather than run through federal databases. The morning is warm, late summer heat already building, though it's not yet 9 o'clock. Bobby drives slowly through the neighborhood, waves to a neighbor watering her lawn, stops at the four-way sign exactly as he should. Everything about his departure appears normal, unhurried. A father taking his son to preschool on an ordinary Tuesday. Julian sits in the back seat, swinging his legs, humming a song he learned from a cartoon. He has no idea that his mother will never see him get out of this car, that the route to preschool will take a different turn, that the life he knows is about to end. The drive to preschool should take 12 minutes. Bobby knows the route as well as Julian's mother does. Left out of the subdivision, right on Columbiana Road, straight for 3 miles, left into the small parking lot where other parents are dropping off their children for the day. He's made this drive during his custody weekends, picked Julian up from afternoon sessions, waved to the teachers standing by the door greeting arrivals. This morning, Bobby makes the left out of the subdivision. He makes the right on Columbiana Road. But when the preschool appears on the left, its cheerful sign announcing Little Learners Academy, Bobby doesn't slow down. He doesn't put on his turn signal. The car continues straight, maintaining the same steady speed, and Julian notices. "Dad, you missed it." "We're making a stop first," Bobby says. His voice is calm, conversational, the tone of a parent announcing a minor change in plans. "What stop?" "You'll see. It's a surprise." Julian accepts this explanation because he's 5, because surprises from parents are usually good things, because the idea that an adult might lie about something important hasn't entered his understanding of how the world works. He watches the preschool disappear in the side mirror and returns to humming his song, kicking his feet against the back of Bobby's seat, in the rhythm that drives his mother crazy but that Bobby has never corrected. Bobby merges onto Interstate 65 heading north. The on-ramp rises above Vestavia Hills, providing a view of the suburbs spreading below. The shopping centers, the subdivisions, the tree-lined streets where Julian has lived his entire 5 years. Then the highway levels out, and the view disappears, replaced by the monotonous flow of morning traffic heading toward Birmingham and beyond. "Where are we going?" Julian asks after 20 minutes. After enough time has passed that even a 5-year-old recognizes they're not running a quick errand. "On an adventure," Bobby says. "Just you and me." "What about school?" "You're not going to that school anymore." "Why not?" "Because we're going somewhere new. Somewhere better." Julian processes this with the flexibility of childhood. He's heard his parents talk about moving, about new opportunities, about changes that might happen someday. The specifics are beyond him, but the general concept, that life can shift, that familiar things can become unfamiliar, is something he's learned to accept. He asks a few more questions, receives vague answers, and eventually settles into the drive, watching Alabama pass by through the window. Bobby has planned this carefully. The gas tank is full. The cash envelope contains $3,000, withdrawn in increments over 6 weeks. Julian's belongings fill 2 duffel bags in the trunk. Not everything, which would have been suspicious, but enough to sustain a child through the immediate transition. The note sits on the kitchen table in Bobby's apartment, where the mother will find it when she comes looking, which Bobby knows she will by mid-afternoon when preschool calls to ask why Julian never arrived. The note is brief but explicit. It explains that Bobby is leaving Alabama with Julian. It states that the custody arrangement is unacceptable, that Bobby refuses to accept supervised access to his own son. It announces that they will not be found, that the mother should stop looking, that this is Bobby's right as a father. The note is simultaneously a declaration and a taunt, written by someone who believes his grievance justifies what he's doing, who has convinced himself that taking Julian is reclamation rather than abduction. They cross into Tennessee by 10:30. Bobby stops at a rest area, uses the bathroom, buys snacks from the vending machine. Julian eats chips and drinks juice, asks again where they're going, receives the same non-answer. The boy's uncertainty is beginning to show. He's quieter now, less interested in the adventure narrative Bobby is trying to construct. "When are we seeing Mom?" Julian asks, as they get back in the car. Not for a while. How long? I don't know yet. Can we call her? Not right now. Julian's lower lip trembles. He's 5 years old, and he's been away from his mother for 3 hours, which is longer than he's accustomed to on a regular weekday. The routine has been disrupted. The familiar has become unfamiliar, and even Bobby's reassuring tone can't completely override the child's growing sense that something is wrong. I want to go home, Julian says. We are going home, Bobby says. Our new home. By noon, they're in Kentucky. By 2 o'clock, crossing into Ohio, the landscape changes from the rolling hills of Alabama and Tennessee to the flatter terrain of the Midwest. Julian falls asleep in the back seat, exhausted by confusion and the drone of highway travel. Bobby drives with the focus of someone executing a plan, checking the rearview mirror more frequently than necessary, monitoring for police cars that aren't there yet because no one knows to look for them yet. In Vestavia Hills, Julian's mother receives the call from Little Learners Academy at 2:45. Is Julian feeling better? The director asks. We missed him this morning. The mother's stomach drops. What do you mean? Bobby was supposed to drop him off at 9. He never arrived. The mother calls Bobby's cell. Voicemail. Calls again. Voicemail. Drives to Bobby's apartment, uses the key he gave her for emergencies. The apartment is empty. Most of Bobby's belongings are still there. Furniture, dishes, books. But his clothes are gone. His toiletries are gone. And Julian's favorite stuffed dog that always stays at Dad's house is gone. She finds the note on the kitchen table. The words blur as she reads them, her hands shaking so badly the paper rattles. By the time she calls 911, Bobby and Julian are 600 miles away, Bobby signing a motel register in Columbus, Ohio, using a name that isn't his, paying cash for a room where a 5-year-old will sleep in an unfamiliar bed and wake up tomorrow asking for his mother. The Vestavia Hills Police Department receives the report at 3:30. By 4 o'clock, the case has been classified as non-custodial parental abduction. By 5 o'clock, the FBI has been notified. Crossing state lines with an abducted child makes it a federal crime. By 6 o'clock, an Amber Alert is drafted, though the system is still new in 2002, still being implemented state by state, not yet the instant notification network it will become. But Bobby has a 7-hour head start. He has cash that can't be traced, a destination the mother doesn't know, and a child too young to know his own phone number or address. By the time Julian's photo appears on the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website, Bobby and Julian are settling into a motel room 700 miles from Alabama, and Bobby is explaining to his confused, homesick son that this is their new adventure, their fresh start, and that everything is going to be fine. Julian cries himself to sleep that first night, asking for his mother in the dark. Bobby sits on the edge of the other bed, listening to his son's quiet sobs, and tells himself this is temporary, that Julian will adjust, that children are resilient. He tells himself this is justice, this is his right, this is what the mother deserves for taking his son away in the first place. What Bobby doesn't tell himself, can't acknowledge, is that he's just committed a crime that will define the next 13 years of both their lives, that he's transformed himself from frustrated father into fugitive, and that Julian will grow up believing a version of reality that is completely, fundamentally false. 3:30 in the afternoon, August 28, 2002. Officer David Chen of the Vestavia Hills Police Department arrives at Julian's mother's home to take the initial report. She meets him at the door, the note from Bobby's apartment clutched in her hand, her face carrying the particular expression of someone whose worst fear has just materialized. He took my son, she says before Chen can introduce himself. Bobby took Julian. He left this note. Chen reads it standing in the doorway, his expression hardening with each line. The note removes any ambiguity. This isn't a miscommunication, isn't a father running late. This is premeditated abduction, announced in writing. Chen radios dispatch immediately, upgrades the missing child report to parental abduction, requests FBI notification. By 4:15, FBI Special Agent Maria Torres is on the phone from the Birmingham field office. Her questions are rapid, precise, designed to establish foundational facts. When did Julian's mother last see him? 8:30 this morning. What was Bobby Hernandez driving? A 1998 Honda Accord, green, Alabama plates. Did Bobby have access to significant cash? Banking records can be subpoenaed. Did Bobby have connections in other states? The mother isn't certain. The note says you'll never find him, Torres says. That suggests planning. How long has Bobby had access to Julian alone? Every other weekend. Wednesday evenings. He's never done anything like this. Torres makes notes. Reliable until he wasn't. She's worked parental abductions before, knows the statistics. Most are recovered within 48 hours if the abducting parent stays local. But Bobby left a note, which means he planned this, and every hour that passes increases the geographic area law enforcement must cover. By 5 o'clock, the FBI has accessed Bobby's bank records. The pattern emerges immediately. Small cash withdrawals over 6 weeks, never more than $200 at a time, totaling just over $3,000. The last withdrawal was yesterday. His credit cards show no activity since this morning's gas station charge in northern Alabama. His cell phone pinged a tower near the Tennessee border at 10:45, then went dark. Torres coordinates with Tennessee Highway Patrol, Kentucky State Police, agencies across the Southeast. Bobby's photo and vehicle description go out on law enforcement channels. The Amber Alert activates for Alabama and neighboring states. But the 7-hour head start means Bobby could be anywhere. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children receives Julian's case file by 6 o'clock. A staff member creates his profile, uploads the most recent photo, Julian at his 5th birthday party, chocolate cake on his face, grinning. The photo will be distributed to media outlets, posted on the website, included in mailings to law enforcement agencies. Within days, age progression experts will create renderings of what Julian might look like at 7, at 10, at 15. The first 48 hours are critical. Torres knows this. The mother knows this. Everyone working the case knows this. But knowing doesn't help when the subject has cash, mobility, and a head start measured in hours. By day 2, media coverage begins. Local Birmingham stations lead with the story. 5-year-old abducted by father. The mother makes an appeal, recorded in the Vestavia Hills police station with Chen and Torres present. Bobby, if you're watching this, please bring Julian home. He needs his mother. He needs his routine. Whatever issues we have, we can work through them. Julian is 5 years old. He doesn't understand what's happening. Please. The appeal airs on evening news and is picked up by regional outlets. Tips begin coming in. Someone thought they saw a green Honda at a rest stop in Georgia. Someone else spotted a man matching Bobby's description at a gas station in Mississippi. Each tip gets investigated. Each one leads nowhere. Torres interviews everyone in Bobby's life, his employer, neighbors, friends. The picture that emerges is of a man who kept to himself, polite but distant, who never talked about plans or frustrations. His apartment manager describes him as a model tenant. His co-workers describe him as competent but unremarkable. No one saw this coming. The mother spends those first days unable to eat, unable to sleep more than a few hours. Her house becomes command center and prison simultaneously. The phone that might ring with news, the television that might show a sighting. Friends and family bring food she can't eat and reassurances she can't believe. The worst part is not knowing. Not knowing if Julian is scared, if he's asking for her, if Bobby is taking care of him. By day 5, the immediate crisis phase transitions into the grinding reality of a cold investigation. The initial burst of activity has yielded nothing concrete. Torres is still working the case, still following leads, but the likelihood of quick resolution has faded. Bobby's trail went cold at the Tennessee border. The mother returns to work after 2 weeks, moves through her days with mechanical functionality. She maintains Julian's room exactly as it was, his toys in bins, his clothes in drawers, his bed made with superhero sheets. She can't bring herself to change anything, because changing something means accepting that he won't be back tomorrow. By the end of the first month, the case has settled into the category law enforcement dreads: an abduction with no witnesses, no evidence trail, no leads that pan out, and a perpetrator who planned carefully enough to stay hidden. The FBI hasn't closed the file, but Torres has other cases demanding attention. Daily updates to Julian's mother become weekly, then bi-weekly, then monthly check-ins, where there's nothing new to report. Julian's face remains on the NCMEC website, updated every year with new age progression photos. The mother participates in these sessions, describing Julian's features to artists who transform her 5-year-old into digital renderings of a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, a teenager. She stares at these images, tries to see her son in them, wonders if he looks anything like the computer-generated predictions. And somewhere, Bobby Hernandez is creating a new life built on lies. He has a new name, a new job, a new identity for his son. Julian is starting to forget Alabama, forget preschool, forget the specific details of his mother's face. Memory is fluid at 5, and Bobby is carefully constructing a reality where Alabama never existed, where the mother is a story that grows hazier each day. The FBI doesn't know where they are. The mother doesn't know if her son remembers her. And Julian Hernandez is beginning the process of becoming someone else entirely. 2003, 1 year since the abduction, Julian's mother marks the anniversary watching local news coverage that's dwindled to a 3-minute segment. The reporter recounts basic facts: 5-year-old taken by non-custodial father, last seen heading north, no credible sightings. Agent Torres calls with the courtesy update: "We're still monitoring databases. His social security number hasn't been used anywhere." The mother understands what Torres isn't saying. Bobby has successfully created new identities, and without those identities triggering system alerts, finding them is nearly impossible. 700 miles north in Cleveland, Ohio, Julian, who no longer thinks of himself by that name, is finishing 1st grade. His teacher describes him as quiet, diligent. His father, who everyone knows as Jonathan Mangina, attends parent-teacher conferences and volunteers for field trips. Neighbors consider them normal, a single-father household in a working-class neighborhood where people don't ask uncomfortable questions. Julian has almost no memories of Alabama now. Sometimes he dreams of a woman's face, feels an ache he can't name, but Bobby has explained this away as confusion. The boy accepts this because children's memories at 5 are fragile, easily overwritten by new narratives constructed by trusted adults. 2005. 3 years. Julian is 8. Playing youth soccer, bringing home straight A's. Bobby works steadily, pays rent on time, has established enough documented history under his false identity that no one questions legitimacy. In Alabama, Julian's mother has turned his bedroom into a shrine she can't bear to enter more than once a week. 2008. 6 years, Julian is 11. The age-progressed photo on the NCMEC website shows a preteen with Bobby's jawline and her eyes. The mother prints the photo, puts it beside real photos from before, studies both trying to find connection. 2012, 10 years. A decade has passed. Julian is 15, attending high school, excelling academically, living the normal teenage life Bobby constructed. When teachers ask about family, he has a rehearsed story about his mother leaving when he was young. The story is practiced enough that he tells it without hesitation. In March 2012, Bobby attempts to obtain an Ohio state identification card. He submits application with false information, but the system flags inconsistencies. Bobby is charged with tampering with records, a misdemeanor, a fine, a warning. It's a crack in the facade, but the BMV employee never thinks to cross-reference with missing persons databases. Bobby pays the fine and continues on. The mother never learns about this near miss. The connection between routine BMV fraud and decade-old Alabama abduction exists only in records no one thinks to compare. 2014, 12 years. Julian is 17, a junior in high school, thinking about college applications and scholarships. He has no idea the future he's planning will collide with the past he doesn't know he has. Bobby watches his son research universities and feels first tremor of concern about documentation. College requires official transcripts, requires Social Security verification for financial aid, requires scrutiny Bobby has avoided for 12 years. But Julian is ambitious. Julian wants opportunities, and Bobby, who spent 12 years constructing an elaborate lie, is about to discover that systems designed to help children access education will expose everything he's hidden. The mother marks the 12th anniversary alone, television off because there's no coverage anymore. She's 50 now, aged beyond her years. The age-progressed photo shows Julian at 17, nearly an adult, Someone who might walk past her on the street, and she wouldn't recognize. What neither knows is that resolution is months away, triggered not by detective work but by the simple requirement that students fill out financial aid forms. Fall 2015. Julian Hernandez sits in the guidance counselor's office at his Cleveland high school. College applications spread across the desk. He's 18, a senior with a 3.8 average and acceptance letters arriving from state universities. The scholarships represent the difference between attending college and not attending. Miss Patricia Wade looks at her computer screen. The issue is with your FAFSA. The social security number you submitted isn't validating. What does that mean? The number either doesn't exist or doesn't match the name you're using. Did you type it correctly? Julian pulls out the slip of paper his father gave him. I checked 3 times. Wade types again, gets the same error. Can you ask your dad for your social security card? We need to resolve this before the deadline. That evening, Julian brings up the problem. Bobby's hand pauses halfway to his mouth. What do you mean it's not working? The system says it doesn't match. She needs the actual card. There's been fraud issues with my identity, Bobby says quickly. It's complicated. I'll handle it. But Bobby doesn't handle it. Days pass, the deadline approaches, and Julian asks again. Bobby makes excuses, grows evasive, won't provide documentation. Julian's frustration builds into something approaching panic. Without the FAFSA processed, the scholarships disappear. College becomes impossible. 2 weeks later, Julian returns to Wade's office. My dad says there are fraud issues. He won't give me the card or tax documents. Wade has been a counselor long enough to recognize when something is seriously wrong. This isn't immigration issues or divorce complications. This is deliberate obstruction. She makes a decision that will change everything. Let me do some research, she says. Give me a day. That afternoon, Wade sits at her computer and begins searching. She starts with basic public records databases, finds nothing unusual. Then, operating on instinct she can't fully explain, she navigates to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website. The database is publicly accessible, designed for exactly this purpose. For people who notice something doesn't add up. She types Julian's name into the search field. The result appears immediately. Missing child, Alabama, August 2002. Last seen, age 5. The age-progressed photo shows a 17-year-old who looks remarkably similar to the 18-year-old who sat in her office 2 days ago. Same jawline, same eyes, same general features. Wade stares at the screen, her heart accelerating. She picks up the phone and calls the number listed for the FBI tip line. October 30th, 2015. FBI Cleveland receives the tip. Agents pull the Alabama file, compare photos, see what Wade saw. They contact Alabama authorities, verify details, confirm that Julian Hernandez was never found, that Bobby Hernandez is still wanted for parental abduction. The case that went cold 13 years ago suddenly has a location and a lead. November 2nd, 2015. FBI agents arrive at Bobby's workplace at 8 in the morning. He's arrested without incident, hands cuffed behind his back, while co-workers watch in confusion. Simultaneously, agents appear at Julian's school, pull him from class into a conference room where Wade waits with 2 federal officers and a social worker. Julian, we need to talk to you about your father, the lead agent says. Julian's confusion is immediate and visible. What about him? Is he okay? Your father has been arrested. Your name is Julian Hernandez. You were abducted from Vestavia Hills, Alabama, on August 28, 2002 when you were 5 years old. The words don't make sense. Julian shakes his head. That's not... My dad wouldn't... The agent slides a folder across the table. Inside are documents, the original missing persons report, photos of Julian at age 5, statements from his mother, the note Bobby left 13 years ago. Julian's hands shake as he turns pages, seeing his own face as a child, seeing a woman he doesn't recognize identified as his mother, seeing documentation of a life that contradicts everything he knows about himself. This isn't real, Julian says, but his voice carries no conviction. Pieces are clicking together. His father's evasiveness about documents, the social security number that doesn't work, the vague stories about his early childhood. the absence of any extended family or connections to a past before Cleveland. Your mother has been looking for you for 13 years, the agent says quietly. She never stopped. Julian stares at the photo of the woman, his mother, her face unfamiliar but the grief in her eyes unmistakable. His entire identity is fracturing. Everything he believed about himself revealing itself as construction, as lie, as the elaborate fiction Bobby created to sustain a crime. The FBI calls the mother in Alabama at 9:30. She answers on the second ring, has kept the same phone number for 13 years just in case. Miss Hernandez, this is Special Agent Crawford with the FBI Cleveland office. We've located your son. Julian is alive. She doesn't speak for several seconds, the news too large to process immediately. Then, are you certain? We've confirmed his identity. He's 18 years old, he's healthy, and he's in our custody now. The sound she makes is something between sob and gasp, 13 years of not knowing collapsing into the certainty of found. Her son is alive. Her son is 18. Her son has lived an entire childhood without her. In Cleveland, Julian sits in the FBI office trying to absorb an impossible truth. The father he trusted is a fugitive. The name he's used isn't entirely his. The mother he doesn't remember has been searching for him since he was 5. And the college applications he was worried about completing are now the least important thing in a life that just detonated into fragments he can't reassemble. Bobby Hernandez, in a holding cell, stares at the wall and understands that the 12 years he stole are over, that the elaborate construction he built has collapsed, that the son he tried to keep is lost to him now in ways that have nothing to do with geography or distance. The guidance counselor, who cross-referenced a database, has just solved a 13-year-old case by doing her job thoroughly. The social security number that failed verification has exposed what FBI investigations couldn't find. And a college financial aid form has accomplished what years of searching never did, bringing Julian Hernandez home. The reunion happens 3 days after the arrest, arranged by social workers and FBI agents who understand that 13 years of separation can't be bridged in a single moment. Julian's mother flies to Cleveland, checks into a hotel room she barely sees, and meets her son in a neutral space designed for exactly this kind of impossibly complex situation. She recognizes him immediately. The 5-year-old features aged into 18, the digital projections made real. He doesn't recognize her. How could he? His memories of Alabama are fragments at best, dreams at worst, overwritten by 13 years of Bobby's constructed reality. They sit across from each other with a social worker present, two people connected by biology and law but separated by everything else that makes family meaningful. I know this is overwhelming, she says, her voice careful, controlled despite the tears on her face. I don't expect you to remember me. I'm grateful you're safe. Julian nods, unable to form adequate response. What do you say to a stranger who is technically your mother? How do you reconcile the woman sitting in front of you with the father in jail who raised you, who loved you, who also committed a crime that stole 13 years from the person across the table? The legal proceedings move forward with bureaucratic efficiency. Bobby Hernandez is charged in Ohio with kidnapping and tampering with records. Alabama issues a warrant for interference with custody, a felony carrying 1 to 10 years. The prosecution builds its case around documents and timelines, around the note Bobby left and the false identity he constructed, around 13 years of deliberate deception. But the case that should be straightforward becomes complicated by the person at its center. Julian, now legally an adult, must testify. The prosecution expects him to confirm the abduction, to validate his mother's suffering, to help ensure Bobby receives the maximum sentence possible. Instead, Julian testifies for the defense. April 13, 2016. The sentencing hearing in Cuyahoga County Courthouse is packed with media, with advocates for missing children, with people who followed this case since the November arrest. Prosecutor Tim McGinty presents the state's position with prosecutorial certainty. Bobby Hernandez is a con man who stole a child and spent 13 years torturing a mother who didn't know if her son was alive or dead. He lived a life of lies because he wanted to get even with Julian's mother. He deserves the maximum sentence. Gloria Allred, representing Julian's mother, reads a statement describing 13 years of anguish, of suicidal despair, of physical and emotional devastation. The courtroom listens in silence to the accounting of what Bobby's crime cost. Then the defense calls Julian to the stand. He's 18, still processing the identity crisis that began 5 months ago, still trying to reconcile the competing realities of his life. He faces the courtroom and speaks in the steady voice of someone who's thought carefully about what he needs to say. He's raised me well, in my opinion. A lot better than any other parents I've seen around. Julian's words land like stones in still water. The time I spent with him is the only time I've ever truly felt at home and at peace. The courtroom shifts uncomfortably. This isn't the script anyone expected. Even if other people can't, I forgive him for what he's done, Julian continues. He looks directly at the judge. Taking him away from me is doing the same thing all over again. The mother, sitting in the gallery, closes her eyes. The son she searched for 13 years is defending the man who took him. The rescue she dreamed about has become another source of loss. Not for her this time, but for Julian, who's losing the only parent he remembers. Judge Cassandra Collier-Williams faces an impossible dilemma. The law is clear about Bobby's guilt. The harm to Julian's mother is documented and severe, but the victim himself is asking for mercy, is arguing that imprisonment equals additional trauma. How do you punish a crime when the victim defends the perpetrator? The judge sentences Bobby to 4 years in Ohio prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. He'll face Alabama charges after completing the Ohio sentence. It's less than the maximum, more than the defense hoped. A compromise that satisfies no one but acknowledges the impossible complexity. Bobby is taken into custody. Julian watches his father led away in handcuffs, the man who raised him transformed into a convicted criminal. The mother watches her son grieve for his abductor, watches the boy she recovered remain emotionally unreachable despite being physically present. The months that follow are exercises in navigation without maps. Julian moves to Alabama, begins the process of building relationship with a mother who's biologically his but functionally a stranger. She shows him photos from his first 5 years, tells stories he doesn't remember, tries to bridge 13 years of absence with words and patience, and the desperate hope that time can heal what trauma fractured. But Julian struggles. His identity was constructed around Bobby's lie, and learning the truth hasn't erased the life he lived. He attends therapy, tries to process the competing realities, attempts to reconcile genuine love for Bobby with understanding that Bobby committed a serious crime. The therapist explains this is possible, that abuse and love can coexist, that Bobby being a good father doesn't erase the fact that he was also a criminal. College gets delayed a year, while Julian sorts through the wreckage of his identity. When he finally enrolls, he uses his real name, Julian Hernandez. But it still feels foreign, still feels like wearing someone else's clothes. He majors in social work, drawn to helping others navigate family trauma in ways he's still learning to navigate himself. The mother learns to accept partial victories. Julian calls her Mom now, though the word carries different weight than it would if 13 years hadn't been stolen. He visits for holidays, and they're building something that resembles family, even if it's not the family she imagined during all those years of searching. She learns that finding someone doesn't mean getting them back unchanged, that recovery is not the same as restoration. The case changes protocols. The NCMEC database gets integrated more thoroughly with state verification systems. School counselors receive training on recognizing signs of parental abduction. The FAFSA verification process that accidentally exposed Bobby becomes a checkpoint others will monitor more carefully. Financial aid forms, of all things, become a tool for finding missing children. Julian's case proves that hiding in plain sight is possible but not permanent, that bureaucratic systems eventually catch up with constructed identities, that the infrastructure designed for one purpose, helping students afford college, can serve another purpose entirely. It proves that ordinary people doing their jobs thoroughly, a guidance counselor cross-referencing a database, can solve cases that law enforcement couldn't crack. But it also proves something more uncomfortable. That resolution doesn't mean healing, that finding someone can create new trauma, that justice for one person can feel like punishment to another. Julian was found. His mother got her son back. Bobby was convicted. The case is solved. But the family remains broken in new configurations. and the question of whether anyone truly won hangs unanswered in the space between legal resolution and human reality. A college application exposed a 13-year lie. A social security number that didn't validate unraveled a carefully constructed identity. And a mother who never stopped searching finally got her son back, only to discover that the boy she lost at 5 had become a young man who didn't remember her, who grieved for his abductor, who forgave the unforgivable because love is complicated and trauma is complicated, and sometimes the person who saves you is also the person who hurt you first. A college application exposed a 13-year lie. A guidance counselor's database search solved what the FBI couldn't, and a young man discovered his entire identity was built on a crime he didn't know happened. Julian Hernandez's case forces an impossible question. Can someone be both a loving parent and a criminal? Should the victim's forgiveness matter when another victim, his mother, suffered for 13 years? If you have information about missing children, contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THELOST. Sometimes a single phone call, a single database search, a single moment of paying attention can bring someone home. What do you think? Was justice served? Leave your thoughts below.